I'm trying to put my head around how many multiple universes there are. And it's gotten to the point that it's almost inconceivable. For example, the cat. We could have a sleeping cat. We could have an awake cat. We could have a sleeping cat with fleas. We could have an awake cat that's having a fur ball. We could have an observer with fleas and an observer who's having a coughing fit. That whole, we can have you standing over there as opposed to standing over there, and me holding this in my left hand. Now, each one of those splits like that for every single breath that all of us are taking. I've kind of got lost there. How does that, I mean, that's really nice because there are like 12 of those.
Yeah.
But
it's actually much worse than that. One of my favorite facts from your book is that the human body has about 5,000 atoms that undergo radioactive decay every second. So that's 2 to the 5,000 branches every second. And that's just me.
Just because you,
how many have I had just
know.
now?
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of branches.
What are you doing?
So how does that work with a multi-universe in a way that humans can comprehend that?
Well, imagine the real numbers between 0 and 1. Divide them in half so that you have the numbers between 0 and a half and the numbers between a half and 1. And then divide them in half again, between numbers between 0 and a quarter and a half and 3/4. You never run out of numbers.
How thin do the universes get?
So
do they disappear? They're so thin.
This becomes embarrassing at some point, but the answer is we don't know.
Thank you.
The slightly longer answer is, I wrote a book.
Yeah, I'm there.
And I talk about this. We don't even know whether the total possible number of universes is finite or infinite. And in my mind, this reflects the fact that we haven't been trying to answer this question. We haven't really been focusing our brains on the foundations of quantum mechanics to the extent that we should have in the last 90 years. I can give you a good argument that the number is infinite, in which case there's plenty of room. I can also give you a good argument that the number is finite. But if the number is finite, the kind of numbers that it might be are things like 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123, which is plenty of room for all the divisions that you need. Yes?
Then the universe gets very thin and it becomes something other than another universe. It becomes another wave?
No, once you're in the universe, so there's a couple things going on here that I should also mention. For one thing, breathing does not branch the wave function of the universe, okay? The wave function of the universe doesn't just branch because you do something or don't do something. The wave function of the universe, as we said before, branches when a quantum mechanical system in a superposition becomes entangled with the environment. That happens a lot, but it doesn't happen just because something happened, right? The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics does not say there's a world in which every different possible thing happens. It says the wave function obeys the Schrödinger equation. And the Schrödinger equation is going to lead to some kinds of universes and not to others. So there's a lot of universes, but there's not literally a different universe, a different branch of the universe for every possible thing you can imagine. But nevertheless, there is something going on in your question. The thinness of the branch you're in is not something that you have any idea what it is. Like right now, we're in a branch of the wave function. How thick is it or how thin is it? Yeah, you have no idea. There's no measurement you can do. There's nothing you can do. You don't feel thinner, sadly. It doesn't, like you can branch the wave function. It doesn't have any effect on how you feel, okay? But there is a process going on. There are two processes going on that are not completely distinct. One is all of these branches are separating from each other, differentiating from each other. The other is, in each universe, space is expanding, stars are using up their fuel, galaxies are moving away from each other, the universe is emptying out. So even though all these branches are becoming different from each other, within each branch, the universe is kind of moving toward an identical future. So when you get far enough in the future, even though there's a lot of branches, they all look the same. So at that point, way, way, way in the future, literally a Google years from now, it will be difficult to even talk about different branches of the wave function. That will no longer be an appropriate description.